This is Salim bin Muhammad Rafi, your host, and here is my YouTube channel, Zamir Universal. The world peace is on fire. The human cries are touching the heavens, and the nature's wrath is in the waiting in the form of earthquake, tsunami, or they be severe either famine. Since the human cruelty cast on innocent women and children of Palestine and Gaza, cornered now as hyena, a group of hyenas, get a small cub of lion and attack him, or a sick lion attack, and they finally get him down and kill him. It is exactly the way you find these Jews of Israel. Now, why people hate them, why people dig up their graves, spit on them, and they have a deep down contempt. And they are the only nation for thousands of years who have been thrown out of many countries, more than 70 countries, many more than once, because of their intrigues. They lie, they cheat, they fleece you, they kill you, they laugh at you, they dance at you, they dance at misery, and they take pride in killing innocent and elderly, sick, and the way they have destroyed the whole healthcare system in Gaza, I think is a typical example why Adolf Hitler hated them and burned them in the incinerators and put them in the gas chambers. As a human being, I do not wish that he should have done that. But imagine now when you see the IDFs laughing, dancing, kicking, blindfolding, stripping them, and throwing them out of their own homes. And for the last 75 years, this is a continuous saga. And now this mad, schizophrenic, maniac is the most hated person, Netanyahu, on earth, with the hypocrisy and double standard and lies and sport of the, at the moment, the most weakest and the most corrupt president of United States. And in the last 6 or 7, you will find anybody who stood for justice and peace was either blamed for a rape and impeached, or was shot in the head like JFK. Now, everybody knows about impeachment of Clinton, and everybody knows about Nixon, and everybody knows that whoever ever raised voice for just solution of Palestine, which was created by Americans and the Great Britain together, gathered the scum of the society in the forms of immigrants, starved, with sunken eyes, barefooted, almost naked, and fed. But they didn't. They occupied their land and they pushed them out. And I look at the extent of cruelty from north of Gaza to south, and from south to Rafah. And now see what they are doing to a small, tiny town of Rafah across and at the border between Egypt and Israel. And none at the moment in 2024, in the month of February, has any conscience. The Muslims, Christians, Arabs, alike, playing politics and the living in a delusion that they, if they do nothing if they sit together. It's like suffering from a fatigue syndrome, that this matter has been there for the last 75 years. So if we just close our eyes like the pigeon facing a cat who is going to eat the pigeon, and he closes his eyes that there is no cat, and finally the cat eats him. It's exactly the way the world is doing towards this madman, this crazy man, this scum of the society, the one who has no right to destroy the peace. And he has no right. He should be given the maximum punishment. And normal death will be no punishment for this man. He has to pay back to his creator and have a miserable demise from this world. And so such a scum of this society, unless they go and nature takes care of them, there will never be ever a peace in this world. Every now and then you find a criminal, a war criminal, a person who has maganomelia, who's abnormal in the head, hating so much and getting joy by doing things. And look at the lies he has created. And always, the Jews always lie. And you can see that even the small percentage of good Jews who are religious and who are as good and as honest as any other person, Muslim or Christian or any other religion, but they overwhelmed by these liars. They fabricated that they have rescued one 60-year-old and one 70-year-old from Rafah in an apartment building. These liars, and God take care of their lies and punish them in the deepest pits of hell. They knew it about February the 2nd, at least 12 days before they said that they found it. And they kept that so that they could have an excuse to bomb and invade Rafah and kill 1.9 million Palestinians once for all, so that they can have the whole of Gaza Strip evacuated, cleaned. They've already leveled every mosque, every institution, every university, every college, every school. They put concrete in the wells so that they cannot drink water. They cut off the electricity and let the neonates die in the incubators. They had to pull out the life support from people because there was no power. The world has never witnessed such a cruel nation, such a cruel country, such a cruel, and they should be expelled with blackened face out of the United Nations, and the whole world should sanction them, and they should not be welcomed in any country. And I think this is the golden and unique opportunity that conscious of the some of the European countries who have come out, and they are really human and they have compassion and they care for human rights, to spit on them and threw their ambassadors out. They were boycotting their banks. And imagine the adamant insistence of this mentally deranged person.
Question. A lot of friends of Israel have been worrying for some time that the way the IDF is behaving in Gaza is putting off Israel's friends around the world in a very serious way. Do you think we've reached that moment?
Well, I definitely am aware of the criticism from everywhere. From Europe, I was in England last week. I heard it there. I heard it in many other places. I heard it from America. So there is criticism. Question whether the Israeli army behaves itself or not. I think we're trying to do the most we can in order to reach out for the terrorists, and in the meantime also to try and find the Israeli hostages and release them. Don't forget that there are 134 citizens from Israel which were abducted by the terrorists, and they are held hostage in somewhere. And we have to find out. I think the question is not whether we are targeting innocent civilians. We don't. But we are fully aware of the fact that they fighting, particularly in an area which is so densely inhabited by many citizens and the headquarters of the terrorist organizations are inside these urban centers is a problem. The fact is that your government, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, in an admirable manner, supported the Israeli military operation in Gaza. He knew just as well as Biden and many others that there are many citizens living there and that the headquarters of the Palestinian terrorist organization inside these centers. So there has a certain degree of collateral damage is almost unavoidable. But at this point, I think, and this is something because you said before that we are taking Rafah. I don't think so. Look, I have an opinion. I said a week before, 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before, I think that we should have stopped. But if you ask me today, at this point now, when there is a conference tomorrow in Cairo about a possible deal between us and the Hamas for the release of the hostages and perhaps a certain truce in the military operation, I think it will be unwise and not responsible to suggest that we will not attack in Rafah. They have to fear that we will attack in Rafah in order to encourage them to reach an agreement with us for the hostages. I want to have an agreement, and I am ready, for the sake of this agreement, to end the fighting.
I suppose, as it were, the kind of humane question has to be, what happens to 1.5 million people rammed up against the border with absolutely nowhere else to go if the IDF goes in fully into Rafah? Where do they go? There's no way that they can evade what's going to happen to them. That's why David Cameron has been so outspoken today.
I must say that I have a lot of respect for David Cameron, and I think that he's a good friend of Israel. So I don't hear what he said and immediately said, no, he's not a friend, he's an enemy, he's a hostile, whatever. I understand what he said, I understand his concerns, I understand his fears of what may happen. I think that for other reasons, we have reached a point where the continuing of the war is not going to give us any fruits which are worth the possible risk of the lives of the 134 Israeli hostages which are held by the Hamas. So I think this should be the focus of our concern. How can we reach an agreement that will release them, even if this agreement that we will stop the operation?
So you don't agree with Prime Minister Netanyahu that you can have total victory in Gaza?
Quite frankly, I don't think that Netanyahu knows what is a total victory, and I don't know myself what is a total victory. I think we already won the war. We destroyed a massive part of the Hamas military power. We destroyed a lot of the tunnels. We destroyed the infrastructure. We destroyed the bunkers. We destroyed the weapons. We destroyed the rockets. We killed more than 10,000 of their fighters. So we have won it. Now, can we eradicate Hamas completely? Can we get rid of them? Can we annihilate them? This is something that is said for reasons which are not necessarily in the substance of what we have to achieve, but because of any kind of political consideration might occupy the mind of the Prime Minister, but which most of the Israelis don't necessarily share.
There is a view held quite widely around the world at the moment that Mr. Netanyahu wants to keep this going because he wants to stay as Prime Minister for his own concerns. He's worried about the legal threats he faces once he ceases to be Prime Minister. And that very personal agenda is part of the story. What do you think?
I'm sure that you heard that I'm not a supporter of Netanyahu.
I had noticed. Yeah.
I don't defend him. I want him to be removed today, and I'm doing everything in my political power or my influence in order to achieve this. So I don't need to go into the questions of what is motivating him. I think that he needs to go because he failed, because he didn't fulfill the fundamental obligation of a leader of a nation, which is to defend his citizens. And that's what he failed in the 7th of October. And since then, I don't think that his performance deserves the kind of leadership that we need. Therefore, I think that we have to change. And we will change, and it will happen sooner than most people think. At the same time, I don't think that it will be fair to remove the ultimate responsibility for what happened from the Palestinians. They are responsible for it. They started it, and they need to pay for it.
I just listening to what you were saying just now about there will be change faster than people think. Does that mean that you have some hopes for this conference in Cairo, some hopes that a deal will be struck before too long?
I hope so. I certainly have hopes. If they go to Cairo, and there were many doubts about it and hesitations, and I'm not sure that the Prime Minister was very anxious to go there, but he was asked by President Biden, and I think maybe by others, including maybe David Cameron and others, that want him to go there. And I think that this is something that most Israelis want. We are all proud of the commando operation that released 2 hostages from Rafah last night, which was admirable operation, military operation by the Israeli commando. But we need to bring back 134, and this is not going to be done every night with the commando operation. So we have to have an agreement that will be brokered by Egypt. I think that there are serious considerations about what may happen to the relations between Israel and Egypt if we will enter massively into Rafah. So all this has to be considered in a very serious and cool-headed manner. I'm not sure that Netanyahu himself is capable of taking all these considerations in the right proportions, but rely on his partners from not from the Messianic side. They I don't trust, and I entirely understand the sanctions that were taken by Secretary Cameron. But the others in the government, I think they share what I say, and we want to achieve this agreement that will bring back the Israeli hostages, and that is going to be a very painful agreement to Israel, because we will have to stop short of what the Prime Minister declared is the ultimate purpose of the war, which is to dismantle and annihilate Hamas. We will have the time to complete the military operation in the future if there will be a need for it. Right now, our priority is to release the hostages.
Mr. Olmert, former Prime Minister of Israel, thank you very much for talking to us. Much appreciated. Thank you.
यूनिवर्सल टेलीविजन को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें, उसके बाद बेल बटन पे क्लिक करें और अपने कमेंट्स के सेक्शन में अपने कीमती जो ख्यालात का इजहार ज़रूर